Rangers, welcome to Liberty Blue, the best Rangers podcast in town. I'm Andrew Chelney, alongside Nick Zararis. We scream about the Rangers so that you don't have to. This is episode 65, live on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube, and we're available wherever you get your podcasts as well. Nick, it's that time of year. It is the middle of August where there is absolutely nothing going on. It is that time of the year for the lists to come out.
Oh, you weren't moved by the random trade that happened at 4:00 on Friday of last week because the GMs were like, I guess I could get some work done before I go away for the weekend. I love the way the NHL offseason works, man. It's hilarious. It's a bunch of high school kids being like, I'll worry about it later. This project, it's not due until September 10th. I will turn that in September 9th. At least with the Jets and the Flames, that's what it seems to be. Because those are the only two teams who really still have moves to make. So today, we're going to get on into it. We got our lists, and we'll have a little bit of fun with this.
You know how when you were in elementary school and you had a project to do and you didn't tell your parents about it until the night before it was due? This is exactly what the NHL feels like a lot of the time. It's like Winnipeg, Calgary. I don't know if you know this. The season's going to start, like preseason's in what, a month?
Yeah,
guys. I don't know. I don't know if you're aware of this. But you should kind of get moving with some of these trades. You got to get on moving. And these guys are like, I'm going to tell my mom about it later. It's like, dude, it's due. Like, you don't have time.
CVS closes at 10 o'clock. Your mom's not going to be able to get that poster board soon.
Oh, brother. Yeah, the NHL is, that is the best equivalent that I can think of. Is like, they just wait until like everybody's freaking out because there's no more time left because you waited too long.
All right, so let's start with the general idea here. 20 best players, because the NFL does 100, and if we did 100 players, that would take 4 hours. So 20 seems like a reasonable amount we can get in within our usual 40 minutes to an hour time frame. Andrew and I use slightly different criteria for our list because we think about hockey slightly differently. For me, when it came to evaluating between the order, trying to establish who goes where, it was really simple for me. Would I rather have this guy or would I rather have that guy? You will see that one position group in particular is significantly lower on my list than on Andrew's list. That was the case last year as well. Same this year. But generally speaking, we've got mostly the same players. There's a couple guys who we have slightly different valuations of, a little bit higher, a little bit lower. But for the most part, we've got the same working group. There's a few guys who ain't different, and you would expect that. People evaluate things differently. But we'll start with our honorable mentions and guys who were on our list last year who got booted off. So you can start. We'll go with the guys who got booted off from your list from last season. Go ahead, Andrew.
So the dropouts from last season, I have Roman Josi, and it's not because he was so bad this past season that he dropped out. I had 5 new players on my list, and through the new valuations, through everything, Roman Josi just barely didn't make the cut. He's still somewhere in that top 20, 30 range. It's not as if like I think he's a bad player or anything, but because of the way that I made my list this year, he just barely made the cutting room floor, but he's still one of the best defensemen in the entire league. Mikko Rantanen, who was by the way, Roman Josi was number 10 on my list last season. Rantanen was 12 last season. He also dropped out. Again, great player. This is not anything. This is not a slight at the player in particular, just the way I made my list this year. He's another player that's in that 20-30 range where you can definitely make an argument that he's a top 20 player. And I will listen to those arguments. It's the margin.
It's very small.
The margin from like 10 to 30 is so small that you can make an argument for any of these guys. Victor Hedman was at 14 last season, also did not make my list. Patrice Bergeron was at 16, retired. Probably still would have made my top 20 had he played this season, which is really funny to think about. And Johnny Gaudreau, who was 17 last season, did not make the cut as well. Your dropouts, sir.
Gaudreau, Josi, Victor Hedman, and I'm forgetting one. And Alex Barkov. And Barkov, like we were talking about when we were putting our list together, you and I were both kind of like, I had to wean out, a couple guys because there were a few guys I wanted to get into my list that I think, and to your point about what you said before about Josi, where it's not like he had a bad season. It's just there were guys who had better seasons last year who I felt I wanted to highlight to get in on this list. I had 4 new entries this year. You had 5. So relatively stable. Honorable mentions, we just mentioned pretty much all four of the guys we mentioned who cut off, and Gaudreau as well. All those guys are honorable mentions. I'd throw Mark Stone in there. I would throw Jack Eichel in there. I'd throw Tage in there. Those are really the guys I wanted to mention. And Quinn Hughes, I would also mention as honorable mentions for me, at least.
Yeah, I definitely had Tage in there. I had Panarin on my honorable mentions just because of the way that he passes the puck is something that I've never. It's something that's one of one. The way that he can pass the puck, I just wish he would shoot more.
Yeah,
he has such an incredible shot that he just doesn't want to use, and that's the one thing that kind of drives him out of my top 20. Is he's such a dynamic offensive player that doesn't want to use it half the time. It infuriates the hell out of me. Jared Spurgeon, another name that I want to include in my honorable mentions. He is an incredible defenseman. Such a great defenseman. And if we made a top 10 defenseman list, he'd definitely be on there for me. But because there's only 20 spots and we have to include forwards, defensemen, and goaltenders in the list of 20, he did not make the list. But he is right there as well.
Yeah, the Evolving Wild wrote a very interesting thing about Jared Spurgeon, I want to say 2 years ago now, where the headline was just Jared Spurgeon's going to be the first analytics defenseman to make the Hall of Fame because he's never going to put up the gaudy counting stats to be a Norris finalist because for some reason Norris voting is tied to point totals, which defeats
Carlson, baby.
Who is not on either of our lists, by the way. But yeah. I digress. Yeah. Jared Spurgeon is as good as they get in terms of two-way defenseman. Doesn't kill you offensively. It's not like you're getting only defense. He's a solid two-way guy on that back end. But there are just guys who, you get the points and good defense. Oh, and one more guy I would like to mention for honorable mentions, Rasmus Dahlin, who had a really good season last year. Who really kind of, I don't want to say turned a corner because he's still kind of ascending. We don't know what his peak is going to be because he's still young, but that's somebody who very well could end up on this list next summer.
Absolutely. Yeah. He's definitely, there's again, the difference between like the 10 to the 30, maybe even 40 is so small that you can argue Dahlin's a top 20 player. You can there's the margin is so small that you can't really go wrong here. No, at the end of the day, it's subjective. You yell at us in our mentions if you so choose, or on the YouTube or on the Twitter or whatever, wherever you'd like, yell at us as much as you want. But it's such a razor thin margin that you have. Some people are going to be left out. That's just the way that these things work.
Yeah. All right, let's get into it. You can start with your number 20.
Sidney Crosby. And he was last year my number 20 still, so that he hasn't changed there. Until proven otherwise, he's going to be a top 20 player. He did not. He had essentially almost the same year that he did the season prior, and he was 20 last season, so he's still 20 for me. Until I see something that makes him until I see him have a drop-off season, he's still a top 20 player for me. He's still an incredible talent, both on offense and on defense as well. He's a great two-way player. He's a lead in the locker room. I mean, he's Sidney Crosby. What can I say that hasn't been said already? Until he drops off, top 20 player for me.
Absolutely. I have Sid at 20 as well. I had him at 18 last year, dropped him down 2 spots because, again, there were guys I wanted to highlight a little bit more. But, yeah, Sid's transformation from best, most dynamic player in the league to just the best 200-foot grinder in the entire league. Remarkable. Still got the lethal backhand. He's one of, if not the best forwards in the entire league in the corners at getting loose pucks, using his body to create space and set up his teammates. Pittsburgh's going to be a very interesting team this year. Whether they get Gensel back soon, early in the season, I think will go a long way. And if Tristan Jarry can be even 3/4 of an effective goalie, Pittsburgh will be a solid team. Sid's great. I mean, Sid played, I want to say, 80 games last year, 81 games last year. One of the healthier seasons he's had. And just like LeBron, I talked about this a few weeks ago on Sid's birthday. 18 years in the league, came in touted as the next guy, and he's been better than the next guy. Sid's been the best player in the league from 2005 probably till about 2017. He was the best player in the entire league. Just remarkable talent, great person, all of the accolades, the intangibles, everything. Sid has to be on your list. He just has to be. Go
Absolutely.
Ahead. Hit me with 19.
Alex Barkov. And last year he was number 9 for me. And there wasn't, again, it wasn't as if he had a particularly poor year.
Yeah.
It's because of everybody else on this list that kind of just moved him down as opposed to him having a bad year that moved down, that moved him down 10 spots himself. The like I said, and I'll continue to say this because as we move along, it's so close between all of these names that if you want to argue that, okay, Barkov is like 13 and not 19 or whatever, fine. Like I'll listen. These things are so tight, but there's so many other players that I want to highlight here as we move forward. Alex Barkov is a phenomenal two-way player. Like there's no way around it. He's an excellent player who you can depend on him to score a goal. You can depend on him to save a goal if need be. I mean, he's somebody that is an incredible two-way talent, and for me, he's number 19.
Yeah, Florida was able to split him and Tkachuk and have two great lines because of how good of an individual player that Barkov and Tkachuk are in their own rights. When you can do that, when you can separate your best players from each other and they're still able to drive play at 5-on-5, Barkov's a great shout. For me at 19, I have UC Saros. Saros has solidified himself as probably the third or fourth best goalie in the entire league over the last couple seasons on a really bad Predators team, which waved the white flag at the trade deadline. They sold off a few guys. They traded Ekholm. They traded Nino Niederreiter. They waved the white flag at the deadline, and Saros, by pretty much him, Matt Duchene, and Ryan McDonough on one foot were the only notable players on that team down the stretch after the deadline. And he got them within shouting distance of a playoff spot. Saros has been a Vezina finalist a couple times now. He's a really good goalie, and he's not on a great team. And those are the types of guys where you can get by. And this is where we can start talking about why I have the goalies a little bit lower. When your goalie is your best player, you are limited as a team, because you look where Nashville is, you look where the Islanders are. I know we both have Sorokin on our list, where you can be amazing, you can be all world, but the best you're going to get is probably a first round exit when your best player is a goalie, and that's why I have the goalies a little bit lower than Andrew.
I love my goalies, and as we'll get higher in our list, I'll shout out why I like having goalies higher, because at the end of the day, like, if your goalie can't stop if they can't stop a beach ball, you're not going to win games. It's just it is the game of hockey where you can have the best defense, the best offense on the planet. If you cannot depend on your goalie to make a save when they need to make a save, or when they can steal a goal away from the other team by making this incredible save that nobody on the planet would expect a goalie to make the save, and there your goalie is making the save anyway. That is such a crucial aspect to a team that I value that maybe a little bit higher than Nick does, but I love having the ability to have a great goalie in net, because then you don't have to worry as much. Like you can play a different style of hockey, because you know that, hey, you have an all-world goaltender in there. It's like they'll handle their business. Let me just handle mine.
Fair enough. Okay, hit me with 18.
All right, number 18 for me is Devon Toews. And he was number 19 for me last season. I mean, he's an incredible two-way player for Colorado. The Islanders gave him up for 2 second-round picks. And
Lou won GM a year after that.
I love the NHL. It's such a great league. Devon Toews is one of the best players in the league. Great blue liner. Never out of position, really. Does so many little things right that don't appear on the score sheet. He's just somebody that when he's on the ice, nothing's going to go wrong. He's a great player. And he's one of the best in the league for sure.
Oh, and the thing that makes him so good and why Colorado has been so dangerous is just all of Colorado's defensemen are great at handling the puck. It's not just that they're good with the puck on their stick. It's they know where the puck needs to go. The puck gets where it needs to, and they don't treat the puck like hand grenades. There are a lot of good defensemen in today's NHL who, when push comes to shove, they would rather take the safe play and bank it off the glass. Where when you look at Colorado, where we both have Makar ranked very highly here, he's probably the best defenseman in the league. You talk about him, you talk about Bowen Byram, just these guys who they can skate the puck out of danger, they can pass the puck out of danger. That's what you need on the back end in today's NHL. Your defensemen have to be competent puck handlers, and Toews is a good shout. He should have been in my honorable mentions. That's an oversight on my part.
He's great. He's just Devon Toews is one of those types of players where, if especially on the blue line, you can't treat the puck like it's a hot potato.
Yeah.
You can't just be terrified of handling it if you're a defenseman, which a lot of defensemen in the league still do.
And there are good ones.
And there are good ones as well. Yeah, like having the puck on your stick is part of the game of hockey. You have to excel, or at least be competent in your ability with the puck and knowing what to do with it and how to get rid of it properly, and and doing all the little things that a professional hockey player should know how to do. And Devon Taves is really good at that, and he's also really good. I mean, he's one of those players where if he has the puck on his stick, you don't have to worry about him. If he doesn't, you also don't have to worry about him. He's a dependable all around player.
Oh, outstanding. For me, at 18, I have Nikita Kucherov. I had him ranked 9th last year. Kucherov's one of the best offensive playmakers in the entire league. He's a miserable bitch to play against where, he's in the NHL on the cross-checking. The Islanders and Lightning in those 2 playoff series are the reason the NHL had the initiative where, like, all right, you got to start calling cross-checks because people are going to start lacerating kidneys if we don't call anything out here. Kucherov is the ideal superstar where he's a really high-end puck handler. He's a mean son of a bitch, and he makes everybody around him better. No matter who you put with him, he's going to make plays happen. His defense leaves a little bit to be desired, but I'm of the opinion
a little bit is doing a lot of work in that sentence. It's doing a lot.
Offense is always more valuable than defense. I am willing to trade defense for offense when it is of the Kucherov ability. It's the same reason I have Kaprizov, I have Pasternak.
But they're good at defense, though. That's the thing. Is that like they aren't a massive black hole at defense. Like last season, I didn't have Kucherov on my list, and this year I also don't have Kucherov on my list because like last season he was an atrocity at defense, an absolute atrocity, and I didn't think it could get any worse, Nick. And then he played even worse defensively this season, and it's just like, dude. I know you're an all-around offensive talent. Like I understand that, but can you at least do something without the puck? Like I'm not asking for a Patrice Bergeron type of turnaround from Kucherov, but I mean at least try, man. Like it is a one-way street with Kucherov, and it is like, man, just something. Try like at least once in a while. It is really sad to watch Kucherov try to play defense because he doesn't do it ever.
So the counter argument to that is, he's a little bit older now. I want to say he's 29. He's 30 years old. It's the same thing you deal with where the guys in the NBA get into their early 30s. Like when LeBron just entirely stopped playing defense, even though he's capable of playing good defense. That's where you're at with guys like Kucherov, where you're so good offensively. I will take the defensive liability because offense is more valuable, especially in hockey, because it's still hard to score, relatively speaking, to the other sports. Hockey offense is going to always be more valuable. It's why I have Makar and Fox ranked as highly as I do, because when you get offense to that degree from the back end, it's so much more valuable than just having an elite shutdown defenseman because you're getting points and you're getting quality defense. Kucherov, you would like better defense from, but he's good enough to the point where I can tolerate the bad defense. Hit me with 17.
All right, number 17, I have Kirill Kaprizov, and he was at 15 last season. I mean, he's a great all-around player. Offensively, just so much fun to watch. He is such a treat to watch. I mean, when he has the puck on his stick, you kind of don't know what to expect out of him, and that's kind of the beauty of watching him. Is like if he speeds down the wing with the puck in the offensive zone, 8 times out of 10, or even 9 times out of 10, like it's even if the puck doesn't go into the net, it's going to be something cool that even if you're a casual fan, if you're a hardcore fan, you watch him and you go, wow, this guy's really fun to watch. He's a really, really, really good talent as well. And yeah, I mean, again, it's not as if like he did something to move him down 2 spots. All of these spots are essentially interchangeable, and he's one of the best players in the sport.
Yeah, I have Kaprizov in the same exact slot. I had him 6 last year. I had him as the best wing, the second best winger in all of hockey last year. He missed like 20-something games with an injury last year. The thing I will say about Kaprizov, that why I rank him so highly and why I value what he does, when you watch the Wild's power play and they cannot get anything going, he will just skate the puck around the perimeter of the offensive zone on the power play and wait for guys to get open, like basketball-style spacing, where he will just control the puck and wait for someone else to get open. I wish Panarin was bullish enough on the puck where he would do that because he's such a dynamic passer to Panarin's credit, he'd be able to do that because he is good at bobbing and weaving through traffic. And Kaprizov is just one of the best straight line skaters in the entire league. Elite skater and just great vision. I mean, the mid-30s, Matt Zuccarello renaissance continues, partly playing with him. Joel Eriksson Ek had a really great season this past year playing with Kaprizov. That Wild team is really defined by, the limits of their roster because of the cap problems they have. But God, is Kaprizov a special player.
100%.
Hit me.
Number 16, I have UC Saros, who was not rated last year. UC Saros is the reason the Preds have more than 6 points. That's about it. Like, he absolutely carried that corpse of a team to... They were knocking on the door to the playoffs after they sold everybody because of UC Saros. Like, this man is one of the elite goalies on the entire planet. It is such a joy to watch him play, and it's a shame that more people don't think of him as a top goalie because he plays for Nashville as opposed to a better team or a more quote-unquote popular team. He's an all-around goalie, and he's similar in the vein to Sorokin, similar in the vein to Lundqvist back in the day of, like, it is the goalie show in Nashville right now, where he is trying as best as he can to carry everybody else, drag them to the playoffs. That is what Saros is doing right now, and he's doing a hell of a job.
He's an outstanding talent. The thing people don't realize about him is he's only like 5'10", 5'11".
He's not a big goalie.
Yeah,
no.
The short goalies who get by on athleticism are all the more impressive because they're constantly having to contort their bodies in ridiculous ways. Yeah, Saros is a great player. And part of why Nashville refuses to totally tear it down, like they have a goalie in waiting in Askarov, but Saros is so good that they can be mediocre with just him as their best player, him and Roman Josi as their two best players. And that's enough for some teams to we got to keep people getting in the building. So we can't trade Saros. So we got to keep rolling, even though we have a goalie in waiting.
That's right.
All right, moving right along. I had Mikko Rantanen here. I had Mikko Rantanen number 11 last year. Colorado had the injuries. They had a really injury-laden season after winning the Stanley Cup. Landeskog is probably never going to play hockey again, which is disappointing. But Rantanen's still one of the best two-way wings in the entire league. Great offense, great defense, really strong skater, really good in transition. Pretty much everything you want from a first-line wing in today's NHL. I struggle. The only thing you could say that's to Rantanen's detriment and why he's not higher on this list is he's not as dynamic as some of the players I have ahead of him. He's not going to bob and weave through traffic. He's not going to let a wicked shot rip. It's just he's really good at everything. And that's no fault of his own. He's not the most dynamic of players. And that's what you were saying before about Panarin is he's so dynamic that you can overlook some of the holes in his game. Rantanen doesn't have any holes in his game. He's just not that dynamic in terms of he can do pretty much anything, but there are guys that next tier above who can do stuff that's just, nobody can account for what's coming next. Whereas Rantanen is just so well-rounded at everything. He's kind of winger Bergeron in a sense where there's no holes, but he doesn't do things to a degree of like a McDavid or a Draisaitl or even a Mitch Marner or an Austin Matthews where they can kind of make everybody look stupid around them.
I agree, and like I said, Rantanen was a dropout from my list, but he's knocking on the door. So It's only 20 spots to fill. And for me, number 15 is Charlie McAvoy. He was number 7 last year, and he's like still one of the top defensemen in the entire league. He didn't play as well defensively this past season as we know that he can play, which kind of was the reason why I knocked him down a little bit. But also, if again moving forward in my list, like you'll kind of see the names I have in front of him and it kind of makes sense as to why I have him at 15. All around elite defenseman, actually defends as opposed to somebody who puts up a lot of points and doesn't defend and who may or may not have won the Norris this year. He's really good at what he does, and he's another one of those players where you never have to worry when he's on the ice. He will handle it. Yeah, and he's an elite talent.
Yeah, he hit the ground running. He had the shoulder injury. He missed the first month and a half, 2 months of the season this year, slided right into that first pair where the Bruins had Derek Forbort as a healthy scratch. And there were a lot of teams where Derek Forbort would be a second pair defenseman. That's how deep the Bruins were on the back end this year. Hampus Lindholm is somebody I would say as an honorable mention we should mention. He was outstanding this past year. For me, at number 15, I have Igor Shesterkin. I had Shesterkin 17 last year. We're Ranger fans. We know how good this guy is. Should have been probably should have won the Vezina this year. If not, Sorokin outstanding. As the Rangers go, Shesterkin goes, there's not really anything else you have to say about that. The Rangers, for all the talent they have, they're going to be defined by their goalie because he's that good. It's that simple.
100%. And yeah, I do have Shesterkin higher on my list. I just value goalies more as we get to our top 20. For me, number 14 is Jack Hughes, who was not rated on my list last season, but now he has arrived. And oh boy, he's listen, like we're Rangers fans, all these things. Jack Hughes is an incredible talent to watch. Yep. Oh man, he's fun. He is such a fun player. And he's the kind of player that if you want to introduce somebody to the sport, take them to a Devils game and just have them watch Jack Hughes, and then they'll become a hockey fan. That's how fun Jack Hughes is to watch. He's already an elite player, and he's only going to get better. It is the Devils have something special in Jack Hughes, and I can't wait to I'm a fan of Jack Hughes whenever he doesn't play the Rangers. I can't wait to watch him play for the next 15 years.
Yeah, I have Hughes a little bit higher as well. He's just he is what when I think of dynamic and like making plays outside of structure, he's one of the 4 or 5 guys that come to mind. Just the stuff he's able to do. I know there are a lot of people on the internet who all are just in agreement, and these are mostly older heads who are like, that guy's going to play 57 games a year because he's so small and he's going to keep getting dinged up. My counterpoint to that is you actually have to catch him to hit him, which is going to be the conundrum most of the NHL faces for the next decade, because that kid's got everything.
100%. For me, number 13 is Jason Robertson. He wasn't rated for me last season, and now he also has arrived. And one of these things too is he plays on a Dallas Stars team that doesn't get the national attention that perhaps that they very well deserve. He is an absolute force.
He's so big. He
is an enormous player, but an even bigger talent. Like, he has the size, but instead of him being tall, he actually has a lot of skill. And but just watching him weave, not just with the puck, but just his body. Yeah. He's a big guy, and he moves around like he's 5'6", 160. It's incredible to watch him just move around the ice, and he has arrived. Man, is he a star? And he's a great talent, and he for me is number 13.
Yeah, 40-goal guy, third year in the league. Special talent. Part of the reason Joe Pavelski is going to play till he's 106 is he gets to play with Jason Robertson. All-world talent. I have Robertson a little bit higher. I had Sorokin at 14 real quick, and then Jason Robertson I also had at 13. Sorokin, he should have won the Vezina last year. Like, no disrespect to what Ullmark did up in Boston, but Sorokin's the only reason the Islanders are relevant, frankly. If the Islanders had league average goaltending, like if Varlamov was their starter, they might win 24, 25 games with that team last year. All-world talent. The save against the Leafs comes to mind with the paddle handle diving backwards across his body. He is probably the flashiest of all the goalies in today's NHL in terms of the saves he's able to make because of his athleticism. Whereas like Shesterkin's like supreme positioning, where he's just always in the right spot. Whereas Sorokin, he can do pretty much anything with his body, which is what makes him so special.
I agree 100%. And I'll get Sorokin's a little bit higher on my list, and I'll get to him in a second. But he's again one of those Lundqvist, Soros kinds of players where without him, the Islanders have 3 wins, maybe. I have Sorokin a little bit higher, but it's just like Sorokin's roster in front of him is worse than what Saros has in Nashville, or at least had in Nashville prior to that. Prior to the deadline, you can make an argument that the Islanders had a worse roster. Their fourth line is a disaster fire. Their entire team is just mediocre, and they don't have any cap space, which is hilarious.
Respect Brock Nelson.
I'm not saying that their entire roster is like awful, but yes. They have good players on the team, but overall, as a team, 18 players in front of their goaltender, they're not anything great. So for Sorokin to put everybody in his bag and just drag them as far as he can, it is such a unique skill to have that there's only a handful of people on the entire planet that can do something, that could do the things that Sorokin does for the Islanders. And Spoilers, I have him at 10. I have him a little bit higher. I did not have him rated last year, but the things that he did this season was nothing short of spectacular.
He should have won the Vezina this year, just being frank. Yeah. Okay, for me, at number 12, I have Elias Pettersson, who was not ranked for me last year. Somebody who 100 points on a really bad Canucks team, the only center on that team that played good defense, especially once they traded Bo Horvat. They got Tocchet in there. I'm very curious to see what happens in Vancouver this upcoming season. They traded for Philip Hronek, who in theory is better than a lot of the defensemen they've had in the past. Pettersson's a really good player. It's just a matter of how consistent he can be. He had the really good season 2 years ago. Then the last 2 years, he was pretty mediocre. And then this year, 100 points on a mediocre team. Really good two-way. One of the best shots in the entire league. He can really let it rip. I know a lot of people on the East Coast don't stay up to watch the Canucks, but because I'm sick in the head, and I stay up to watch bad hockey teams.
Absolutely.
You get an appreciation for how good Pettersson is when the Canucks are on the power play and it's him, JT Miller, and Brock Besser and Quinn Hughes just merry-go-rounding the puck around the perimeter. Pettersson skates between the circles and lets a puck rip that the goalie doesn't see because it goes by so fast. Pettersson has the dynamic ability that I think I had to put him as high as I did because, frankly, he's so dynamic as a skater and a shooter.
Should have been in my honorable mention, and I forgot to put him in there. And you're right; he's definitely somebody that deserves the praise that he gets and deserves more attention. For me, number 2 was Matthew Tkachuk, and he was number 11 for me last year. It's essentially the same spot. Anytime you can have a top 6 forward do what he does, especially come playoff time, he's the hashtag grit guy that
Who's
actually
good.
Does things.
Yes.
He's what GMs think Ryan Reeves is. It's such a strange concept that these hashtag grit guys are for some reason all on the bottom 6, but Matthew Tkachuk is the hashtag grit guy, is the hashtag sandpaper, hashtag locker room glue guy, whatever you want to say, but also on top of all that is really good at hockey. I mean, he is such a force. He's a big guy who just doesn't care about anybody that's in front of him because he'll knock anybody down. He'll get to the front of the net. He gets to the dirty areas. He is exactly the kind of leader that your team wants to have, and he's an all-around talent. And the things that he did come playoff time where he is essentially like, all right, everybody else, hop on my back. We're going. Everybody else get out of my way. I love that about him, and he's right there for me.
Yeah, I have him a little bit seated higher. The thing I'll say about Tkachuk is he's the guy you want in the foxhole next to you because he's going to make the play. He's going to do everything he can to make the play. You know how we bemoan how no one on the Rangers takes the puck to the net? Tkachuk will go to the net without the puck, get cross-checked in the back 6 times, wait for the puck to get to him, and then still make the play happen. That's the kind of attitude you want from the best player on your team. You want somebody who's willing to who is that good, that talented, who could get by being a perimeter player, who says, no, I can go to the net and make the other team's life miserable. That's what you want from your best players. Tkachuk is probably the best in terms of being that gritty net front guy who can also get 100 points. That I would say he is, in my opinion.
100%.
Next up for me, I got Jack Hughes. I didn't have him ranked last year. Everything Andrew said and I said before, that Devils team is terrifying, frankly.
Yeah.
That Jack Hughes is when you get the first overall pick in the draft, you want a Jack Hughes type guy who not only is going to flirt with 100 points on his own, he's going to make everybody's life around him easier because he's a one-man zone entry. This is something I've talked about a lot in respect to the Devils. They are one of, if not the best teams in the entire league in transition. And that starts with Jack Hughes. Jack Hughes is right up there with McDavid in terms of you get the puck on his stick through the neutral zone. He will gain the offensive zone with the puck on his stick. He will be able to skate around the defenders so his wingers can catch up to the play. The wingers can get into position. He won't lose the puck, and he will still make a play happen. That's why on occasion you will see him just lose his edge because he's skating so fast and so hard where he pivots and wipes out. I know a lot of people enjoy those. Those are very funny, where when you have one of the 5-10 best players in the entire league skating top speed and then just wipes out.
He's just like us, for real. So.
Yeah, for real. Okay, hit me.
All right, so with number 11, I have David Pastrnak, and I had him at number 18 last season. He is on Boston right now because of Patrice Bergeron retired, the best two-way player on the team.
Yep.
Now that Krejci's gone, Bergeron's gone, he is now the best two-way player on Boston. he honestly might still compete for the best two-way player in the entire league. He's so good. I mean, what can you say about his shot that people haven't already said? Just a unique talent to essentially, like, he could shoot from the rafters and still go top cheddar and score.
Yep.
Like he has a shot that I've never seen a pro player have. Such a dynamic ability to just score at will whenever he wants to. What a great player. He's number 11 for me.
Pasta was so good, they broke up the best line in hockey to play him with Pavel Zacha and Taylor Hall last year, and they were one of the best lines in hockey in terms of the underlying metrics and zone entries. That's how good David Pastrnak is, that he was able to fully rehabilitate Pavel Zacha's value. Pasta's great. He's a little bit higher up on my list. My number 10, you had him a little bit lower. I have Charlie McAvoy. I think McAvoy is probably the best defensive defenseman who is also a high-end offensive player in respect because he's so good in the corners. He's great at breaking out from defense to offense. He really put on a really good point total this year, which had kind of always been the knock against him and why he really wasn't really in the Norris conversation because he wasn't running their power play. But this past year, he kind of added that to his game. Produced a really funny video at his wedding where Bergeron and Marchand made out in front of everybody at his wedding at the Boston Public Library. Congrats on getting married, Chuck McAvoy. Really good player. I'm upset we're not going to get the Adam Fox, Charlie McAvoy on the same team thing I thought might happen, where McAvoy, growing up a Rangers fan, was going to do the exact thing Adam Fox did once he had the opportunity to leave. It's fine. He's going to probably end up being the captain in Boston, not too distant future. Really special player. Just one of the best defensemen in the entire league. I have him as the third best defenseman in the entire league. You know the two guys I have ahead of him.
Sure, 100%. And for number 10, like I said, I have Ilya Sorokin. But as we talked about, he's one of those goalies where he has the unique ability to just, all right, everybody just
follow me.
Just try your best and just follow the leader here because I'm carrying everybody here and nothing's gonna get in my way. Number 9, I have Mitch Marner. He was number 6 for me, and now he's number 9. He is an all-around dynamic player, and Toronto Maple Leafs fans hate him for some reason. I don't get it. I know I'm not in Toronto, so maybe there's a certain angle that maybe I'm missing, but I've watched this guy play so much hockey over the past years and this past season, and man, he's a special talent. I just don't get why fans don't like him.
Finalist this year. He was a Selke guy with 100 points. I mean,
I don't get it.
As well-rounded as they come. I know that the knock on him is that he's not as willing to go to the net, whatever, as some of the other guys who, he's a good player. I have Mitch Marner in the exact same spot at number 9. I had him number 9 last year as well. This is one of the 3 or 4 best wings in the entire league. High-end defense, elite offense, really strong playmaker. He's probably a better playmaker than he is a scorer, but really good player. Somebody who's getting paid below market value because the NHL salary cap hasn't gone up in 5 years. And he signed that contract, I want to say 4 or 5 years ago. Him and Austin Matthews are going to really define the next wave of contracts that go out because McDavid, these are some of the best players in the entire world. And if the salary cap jumps the way we think it might, these guys are going to reset the market for every other player in the sport. That's how good these guys are.
Can't wait. What's your number 8?
Number 8 for me, I have David Pastrnak. I had Pastrnak at 16 last year. Pasta's as good as they get in terms of goal scoring. I'm curious now if Boston takes a step back, he gets a little bit closer to what we've seen Ovechkin become, where it's just offense for him. We could see maybe Pasta flirt with a 50-goal season on a lesser Bruins team. I'm curious to see if we get something to that respect. I'm just curious how they're going to deploy that lineup. I wonder if they're going to go something like Zacha as the first-line center between Marchand and Pasta, or if they're going to split Marchand and Pasta up to try and have 2 lines to mitigate some of the losses they've suffered, like we talked about with Krejci and Bergeron. But yeah, one of the best shooters of the puck in the entire league. Really, really good defensively and kind of better defensively than some of the guys I have lower on the list, like Kaprizov, Kucherov, etc. And he's just a little bit better in terms of the goal scoring, why I have him ahead of Marner. Because you would text me, who do you have ahead, Marner or Pasta? And I had Pasta's ever so slightly.
It's a toss-up. It's essentially like who's having the better day.
Yes.
is kind of who you take at that particular moment. They're so good at what they do that you can't really go wrong with either. For me, number 8 is Adam Fox, and he was number 8 for me last season. One of the best defensemen in the sport. Whenever you watch a defenseman play, the more skilled they are, the easier they make their job look. Adam Fox makes his job look like a walk in the park.
Yeah.
He has this ability that I've never seen any defenseman have, for the most part, of just like, he makes everything look like he just woke up.
Yeah.
Of just, oh, this is so easy. Oh yeah, like let me just make this ridiculous play on the blue line and keep the puck in the zone, or let me just make this poke check that nobody else would make, or it would lead to a tripping penalty. Let me just do this real quick, steal the puck, and we're going the other way. Oh, by the way, let me steal the puck that would lead to a penalty for anybody else, and then let me pass the puck 90 feet to Chris Kreider, who has a breakaway. Like, I've never seen anybody have the ability to make the NHL game as a defenseman look as easy breezy, beautiful cover girl as Adam Fox does. It is such a joy to watch, and I'm very glad he's on the Rangers.
Yeah, I'll say my spiel for Fox. I have him a little bit ahead. Next up for me, I have Leon Draisaitl. I had Draisaitl number 4 last year. I have him down at 7 this year. That's more of a credit to the guys I have ahead of him as opposed to a knock on him. The thing that's really impressed me about Draisaitl the last 2 years has been his performance in the playoffs. You think about last year where he was effectively on one leg, and he was still leading the entire playoffs in goals 2 years ago. And this past year, he was great for them as well. This is one of the best players in the entire league. I know a lot of people. There are a lot of people who are never going to be willing to give him the credit he probably deserves because he plays with McDavid, because they run the power play together and they get so many points off of each other. But this is one of the best players in the entire league. And if you don't appreciate it, you're missing out, because this guy, when you watch the Oilers power play at work, he is every bit as involved as McDavid is.
100%. And I didn't have him last year. I do have him on my list this year to have him higher than you do, which is a surprise considering. For number 7, I have Andrei Vasilevsky, and one of the best goalies in the league. He didn't have a great performance against Florida in the first round, but nobody really on Tampa Bay did. They all they were just exhausted. Yeah. Like, you can't win 2 cups in a row, then get to a final, and then also go on another run. Like, you just can't. There's the human body can only take so much, especially when you get to like when you play until late June and the preseason's in September. You have 2 months to, continue working out, but also get in all of your downtime and all. A lot of players have nagging injuries. Especially the longer you play, the more nagging the injuries are. You don't have a lot of time to recuperate, and now you're back to the grind. And there's only so much you can do. But Vasilevsky is still one of the best goalies on the planet, and until proven otherwise, he is one of the best goalies on the planet for sure.
Next up for me, I have Adam Fox. The way I would describe it is kind of like Neo in the Matrix, where everything around him is moving in slow motion. Because that's always the knock. You see a lot of people say he's not a good skater. He doesn't need to be a good skater. He is smarter than everyone else, and it's why he's as effective as he is, and why I think age will be kind to him, because he isn't an elite physical talent. I would go as far as to argue Charlie McAvoy is more physically talented. Cale Makar is more physically talented. Quinn Hughes is more physically talented. What sets Adam Fox apart is his mental ability to dissect the game, where even though the game is happening so quickly, everybody's moving so fast, he is able to slow it down to a point where he knows what he needs to do at any given time. It looks so effortless. And that's why a lot of people are like, well, he doesn't skate that hard. He's not that fast. He doesn't need to be. He knows where he needs to be because he is that smart. This is probably the single smartest player in the entire league in respect to knowing where they need to be at all times. And that's what makes Fox so special, is it's all positioning. He's not a great skater. He's not that big. He's not that strong. He knows where he needs to be, and he is almost always there.
100%. No, I totally agree. For number 6, I have Igor Shesterkin, and he was number 5 last year. I had to move him down 1 because Leon Draisaitl is higher. That's it. He is this era's Henrik Lundqvist. He is the reason. He is the biggest reason the Rangers are where they are every single year. He's the biggest reason the Rangers can win every night, despite their horrific defense on some nights. Like he's the leader in the locker room, even though he doesn't have the C. Like, he is one of the biggest pillars of this Rangers core, and without him, the Rangers are toast. No matter what Zibanejad's power play Slapshot has to say about it.
I still think about how when Shesterkin first got here, he said, "It's okay. I like making a lot of saves." Boy, did the Rangers listen to him. Boy, did the team. Oh, you like making saves? Oh
yeah, okay.
Bet. Yeah, that's the entire team building philosophy.
Pretty much.
Okay, next up for me, number 5 for me, I have Austin Matthews. I had him at number 2 last year.
Wow. Okay.
The nagging wrist injury kind of hampered him a little bit defensively, and it's more a credit to the guys I have ahead of him as opposed to a knock on him. This is probably the best pure goal scorer in the sport. He's not as good a skater as McKinnon or McDavid. That's why I have both of them ahead of him. Still need him to have that signature kind of moment in a big game that's yet to come for them. Tavares scored the big goal for them where they finally got through. Then, by the time they got to that second round, that nagging wrist injury was a real issue for him. And granted, to still score 40-something goals with a bad wrist, only playing 60-something games, Matthews is as special as they come. Like I said before about Jack Hughes, when you pick first overall, you want a guy like Austin Matthews as your selection, where he has a dynamic ability that even the most talented of players cannot fathom. There are guys who are really good at the sport of hockey who cannot do what Austin Matthews does.
Yeah, I personally would not draft Patrick Stepan, but that's neither here nor there. Number 5 for me would be Cale Makar, and that is my highest defenseman on this list. Cale Makar is the best defenseman right now on the planet. If you wanted to argue Adam Fox, if you wanted to argue Charlie McAvoy, I'm here for all of it. Like the margin of error is so minute that it's not really worth fighting over. But to me right now, Cale Makar, as of August 21st, is the best defenseman on the planet. He's just if every single play that you watch him make, you're like, oh my God, wow, I can't believe he just did that. Like he's
30-goal guy as a
he's
defenseman.
incredible. Such a joy to watch. And again, he's another one of those guys where you could take someone who has never watched hockey before or has never been interested in hockey before. You take him to an Avs game and you just sit them down and you're like, okay, I need you to watch 2 players for me. I need you to watch Nathan McKinnon. I need you to watch Cale Makar. And after the game, the fan that you take will be the biggest hockey fan that you'll ever see, because that's how fun they make the game look. It is a unique talent to have a skater do that to somebody, and Cale Makar has that ability.
Yeah, I have Makar a little bit further up, and I'll give my spiel on him in a minute. Number 4 for me, I have Nathan McKinnon. I had Nathan McKinnon number 3 last year. This is the second most dynamic player in the entire league behind Connor McDavid. He's a little bit bigger. He's a little bit stronger than McDavid. So he is willing to kind of put his head down and bowl through people. Really, really high-end skater, one of the best straight line guys. As dynamic as they come, really, other than McDavid. And the thing about McKinnon that's so great is there are times where you will see he'll look left, right. Oh, no one's with me. Okay, I'll make the play happen then. And wait for the rest of his guys to catch up. And he'll take it to the net himself in a way that maybe some of the guys a little bit lower won't. The Avalanche are still going to be a good team, regardless of what happens with Nichushkin. Landeskog probably not coming back. A little bit more dinged up than you probably like for a team that's still, they've had a cup. They had one deep run where they won the cup. They made a conference finals once, but that's a group you feel like probably had a little bit more to give in terms of championships, but just a little bit dinged up, a little bit old, some external factors like Landeskog's knee not really healing properly. But yeah, McKinnon's unbelievable. One of the most exciting players to watch in the sport.
Number 4 for me, I have Leon Draisaitl, who was not rated for me last year. We made our list a little bit differently last season, and I was I leaned in heavily towards all around players as to, okay, I see how incredible Leon is offensively, but my man's is an atrocity on the blue line, defensively, and that's why I didn't have him last season. But watching the way that he plays this season and kind of tweaking the way I make my list. I mean, when you score 1,000 points essentially I understand you play with McDavid. I understand you score 1,000 points on the power play. I get all that.
They had Zach Hyman get 90 points last year. That's how good these guys are.
He's such a gifted player that his defense almost doesn't matter. There's you can count the number of players on your fingers. The offensive skill that they have transcends any other defect that they have. And Leon Draisaitl is one of those players where, my man's can't guard a lawn chair. The thing about that is that he never has to, because the puck is always in the offensive zone. So he doesn't have to, guard the chair and make sure no one sits on it at the beach. Like he's never in the position to need to do that. So it's okay that he can't, because he's always dancing around somebody in the offensive zone and scoring. Like it's a one-of-one talent almost, and Leon Draisaitl has it.
Yeah, I am very much looking forward to a Ranger game ending at about 9:45 p.m. and then just going, oh, the Oilers are on, and then watching whatever godforsaken dogshit Pacific Division team is holding on for dear life as the Oilers whip the puck around in the offensive zone for a minute and a half until McDavid or Draisaitl bangs the puck in the net behind whatever godforsaken goalies. And when we do the Pacific Division preview, good Lord, there's maybe one good goalie between all 8 of those teams. It is an atrocity out there.
Yeah, 100%. For me, number 3, I have Nathan MacKinnon, and I had him at number 13 last season. I don't remember why exactly I did, but I mean, when you have a player that is as unique as Nathan MacKinnon offensively, and he's not great defensively, but he's a lot better than, somebody like Draisaitl or these other players. Like he's such an offensive dynamo that he dances with the puck. It's almost as if he has the puck on a string.
Yeah.
Like no matter where he is, the puck follows him. He has this uncanny ability of holding on to the puck. No matter what he does, if he falls down, he still has possession. Like another just rare, almost one-of-one breed of talent, where no matter what he does, no matter where he is, no matter where the puck is, the two just always seem to find each other, and he's always speeding down the wing and scoring at will. An exceptional talent. He's number 3 for me.
Number 3 for me, I have Matthew Tkachuk. Matthew Tkachuk, I am fully in terms of this is one of the most valuable skill sets in the entire league. You talk about the thing about Tkachuk for me is the entire aura of that Panthers team changed when he got there. And they were really mediocre the first 50 games of the season. Like they played their way into the playoffs over the last month and a half. But once they got in the playoffs, I mean, he scored 2 series winning goals, 4 overtime game winning goals, just always on the puck. That cliche Rick Nash quote I always say, good players find the puck and the puck finds good players in overtime. That's Matthew Tkachuk, where every time he's on the ice, he's making an impact. If it's not during the whistles, it's after the whistles where he is annoying the other team. He's drawing penalties from the other team. Just one of the best playoff runs we have ever seen in the one of the best playoff runs of the last 10, 15 years in the modern NHL. Just everything you want from a player, Tkachuk was for the Panthers this past year, and really changed the energy around that team. Like they were really happy just to make the playoffs 2 years ago with the really good record and then lost to Tampa. And then this past year, they were on the ropes there in that first round series, and they found a way against the Bruins. They found a way to beat the best regular season of all time. And that's an attitude thing. Like Tkachuk said, it's fine. We don't care who we're playing. No matter who we play, we're going to be ready to play. And that's only certain types of players have that moxie to them. And I hate talking about intangibles, but that is one of the players where you can see the intangibles translate to his game and the people around him.
100%. Yeah. Like, and I talked about this earlier. Like he is the hashtag great guy that GMs fawn over.
Yes.
He is the guy that actually has the skill to put that hashtag grit into use.
Yep.
Like, I don't care how much sandpaper you have. If you can't play hockey, you can't play hockey. But he can really play the game of hockey, and he also has that hashtag sandpaper that drives those intangible conversations to the next level. Number 2 for me is Austin Matthews, and you had him a little bit lower. I was kind of surprised by it, but yeah, I mean, when you are the best sniper on the planet currently, it's tough to put you anywhere else. And I understand, like, he had the wrist injury that kind of hampered him a little bit, but to do what he has scored over 40 goals. Playing in less than 70 games with a wrist injury.
Yeah.
Find me somebody else on the planet that could do that. Like, he is one of one. He is the best. He is the best sniper on the planet right now. Ovechkin's still up there for sure, but I mean, he's getting up there in age. Austin Matthews is the best current sniper on the planet, I would argue. And the playoff issues are still there. I need to see more out of Matthews and because he can score at will, and I want to see more of that come playoff time for sure. But as a talent in and of himself, So I think he's the second best player on the planet right now. I mean, obviously, there's only one player that I haven't named so far. It's not rocket science as to who it is, but Austin Matthews can essentially win a game by himself at any point in time if he so chooses, and I love the way he plays, and for me, he's number 2.
Yeah, outstanding talent, one of the best shooters in the league. The curiosity I have with Matthews will be A, if they ever win anything, B, if he decides to leave Toronto, where he ends up going, and then
Arizona.
three. Well, that's if the Coyotes are still in Arizona.
Him and Marner are going to Arizona. Book it. I'm kidding. I'm kidding. For legal reasons, this is a joke.
And then the other curiosity is if he can sniff Ovechkin. If he keeps putting up 40, he's only 25. If he keeps putting up 40 goals a season through his mid-30s, he'll have a real chance at catching up to where Ovechkin and Gretzky are. He's really, like, that sounds insane to say about somebody who's only 25 years old, but he stays healthy and keeps potting 40 goals a year, and the league keeps getting more offensive-centric where it's easier to score. He could flirt with 50 a year, and he can really start getting into that conversation of best goal scorer ever.
Absolutely. I agree.
And then my number 2, I have Cale Makar at number 2. And with the logic being, there are no other defensemen on the planet who can do what he does in terms of goal scoring and offense. Like Adam Fox is probably the most well-rounded of him, McAvoy, and Makar. But Makar is the best offensively, and he's the most dynamic in terms of playmaking, skating, etc. And McAvoy is probably the best defensively of the 3. So in terms of why I have Makar this high is, when you can get offense from that back ends, like Makar's number, I think he's getting like 9 million a year. At that number, you are stealing excess value. Like, depending on which model you look at, you're talking about Makar being worth like $17, $18 million a season because his skill set at that position is so unique. Otherworldly dynamic from the back ends. Makar, it's very hard for me to not say he's the most unique defenseman in the entire league, and probably, frankly, the most unique defenseman I've ever seen, frankly. Like, we've seen really good high-end dynamic players at that position, whether it be Karlsson, PK Subban, earlier in their respective careers. But what Makar does is insane, man. 30 goals as a defenseman is just ridiculous.
Hey, he's putting up points. He could also defend. I don't know, Nick. I don't know, Nick, if you know, but the Norris defenseman for best defenseman did not go to a guy who can defend. I don't know if you know that about the most recent winner, Nick, but he's not on my list, and he's also not on yours.
We both have McDavid number 1. 160 points.
Yeah.
Otherworldly. The question I asked you last year in respect to McDavid, when we both had McKinnon, Matthews, and him as the 1, 2, 3 last year. And the question I asked you was, is there anything either McKinnon or Matthews could do to close the gap to McDavid? I think, frankly, the conversation at this point is, can anybody flirt with McKinnon and Matthews for 2 and 3 in terms of forward talent? Because I don't think we're going to see a talent flirt with what McDavid is for at least another 10 to 15 years. Like, there's always a guy who comes along, but these are truly the generational guys, the once every 15 years type of talents, where we had Sid, we have McDavid, and there'll be another guy, say 2026, 2027, 2028, something in that respect.
The Victor Wembanyama, if you will.
Yes, exactly. NHL. That's what we're waiting on, because there's nobody who can do what McDavid does. There's not a single person on the planet Earth. McDavid is the easiest person in terms of, oh, you've never watched hockey before? Let me put on the Connor McDavid mixtape and watch you embarrass every single person on the ice. Him skating through 5 Rangers, scoring that goal 2 years ago, was in the ESPN commercial, and it justifiably so.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, this is the best hockey player I've ever seen. If you have not seen Connor McDavid in person, go see him play hockey, because he will change what you think is possible in terms of the sport. He's
such a fun player to watch, and that sells him short. That's how cool he is. And it's funny, like, because ironically, he's not very cool off the ice.
Yes.
He's a very drywall kind of humor, like, very just not a super personality, which is why the NHL doesn't really use him a lot for their marketing, because my mans will just kind of exist outside the game, which is really, like, it's really funny to think about, like, how average of a human being he is, like, outside the ice, but when he steps onto the sheet of ice, my man's is the best player on the face of the planet.
He's the Terminator. When he steps on the ice, he's the best. the best hockey player we've ever seen. The stuff he does, the skating, the hands, and the shooting. And he's a really good shooter. Like, there are better individual talent-wise in terms of shooting, but he's so good in terms of his skating and his playmaking. He doesn't need to score 50 goals a season.
You know what he reminds me of? He reminds me of like how there are kid geniuses that go to college. He pretend like Connor's 13 and he's 8 in college. Yeah. And you know how like there's icebreakers of like, hey, go around the room. He's like, hey, I'm Connor. I play hockey.
Yeah.
Like that's his personality. Like, it's so funny to think about. Like, he doesn't do like anything special or funny or anything like off the ice. He proposed to his wife in sunglasses. Chadoing, take him off. But like he's such a bland personality. But then when he steps on the ice, he is the best player on the face of the planet. It's funny to think about.
And the thing that's insane, and we'll end on this note, is McDavid's going to pot between 120 and 170 points every year he stays healthy the rest of his career. And he doesn't have a chance in hell of catching Wayne Gretzky.
What a world. If only McDavid played in Gretzky's era, you think he'd crack 300 points a season? I mean, awesome. he could hit 240 easy. Yeah. You see the goalie technique, and whenever I see goalie highlights from the 80s, they just dive the wrong way, like Goldberg in the Mighty Ducks. That's essentially like it's. And we're not making fun of him per se, but like the technique was just not near what it is now. The goalies today are operating on a completely different stratosphere comparatively to how the goalies played 40 years ago. That's just the way sport evolves, right? Players get better over time. They develop better techniques and all these things throughout the years. And if you compare nowadays' goalies to the 80s and the 90s and the 70s, like they don't even look like this. It's the same sport.
Yeah, McDavid is otherworldly talented. This is a fun exercise. This is a good way to kind of set the tone for what's upcoming. We'll start division preview shortly. We'll get probably a 2-part Rangers preview to set the tone, but we're getting close. Hockey isn't quite on the horizon yet. We're still a good, 3 weeks away from training camp starting, about a month away from preseason games starting, but we're getting there. We're almost through the summer, and soon enough, we will be talking about actual hockey.
Oh, I can't wait. Oh, it's close. You know how you're in the car and the window is like, hey, objects in mirror are closer than they like. It's right there. It's right in the rear view mirror. Sooner rather than later, we're gonna get hockey back, and I cannot wait.
All right, that'll do it for this week's episode of the Liberty Blue Podcast. Make sure you are subscribed wherever you get your podcasts, on YouTube as well. We are live every single Monday, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. Following along on socials. We'll see you guys next week. Summer's winding down. That's a little upsetting, but hockey's on the horizon. So we'll see you guys next week. Be safe and all that. We'll see you guys then.
Later.